Hi everyone, I want to share this while it is fresh, and although this will come later in the program, I think it is around module, might be 10, 9 or 10, but this concept of, this is around intuition, and this concept of an intuitive yes and an intuitive no, and what it means to have intuitive bias. So let me just frame this conversation. I am coaching with a former coach of mine from several years ago, quite a lot of years ago, back in 2020. So wow, we're going back 5 years. Which is so incredible. And so I am doing some coaching with her, and this was a conversation that came up in one of our trainings, and I really thought it was so profound and so important. So let me share this with you, okay? And this is coming from my takeaway and my interpretation and my lens from how this has transpired in my life, and I want to share this with you. So you might have heard, and maybe you haven't, but this idea of and people say it in different ways, like a sacred yes and a holy no, or a sacred no and a holy yes. And what does all of that mean? For many of us, saying yes when we mean yes and saying no when we mean no can be very challenging, especially if we are a people pleaser, or if we don't want to disappoint people, or if we want people to like us, a whole host of reasons. Sometimes we'll say yes when we really mean no, and we're going to say no, and it is a no, but we still say yes, and we'll get to the no later. And so we have to hold that knowing that we just said yes, but we're going to come back around to a no later. And that is expending energy, and what I think of it as leaking energy unnecessarily. But because we're not walking in the world in our power and in our truth and in alignment and in resonance, we'll say things like sure or yeah or yes, and we'll agree to things when the true answer is no, and vice versa. We'll say no to something when we really wanted to say yes to something, etc. Then there's this other concept where it is an intuitive yes and an intuitive no. I'm going to break that down. So here's an example. So my coach, for example, she will make an offer, and oftentimes when she is making an offer, there's not a lot of information. There's almost no information. There's an offer in particular that she makes. She's known for this type of offer, and it's called an invisible offer. And there's no information. Now, she's made these offers before, and I have gotten a very strong intuitive, nope, not interested. Now, why? I couldn't tell you why. There's no answer. I have no answer for you. It's not her. It's not me. It's just, no. And a lot of times when that happens, if you hang around long enough, you'll either get FOMO, fear of missing out. You'll start to doubt your decision. You'll start to get swayed. Well, is that the right thing? And maybe I should do it. What was I thinking? And so, but if you just listen to that gut instinct, that intuitive hit, you already know the answer. And there's no denying it. There's no arguing it. There's no explaining it. And it could be, no, this version of me is not available for that. no, this level of courage that I have right now isn't available for that. No, where I'm at right now in my life doesn't have an interest in that, isn't open to that, isn't available for that, doesn't want that. So whatever fill in the blank almost doesn't even matter. It's just no. And the flip side of it's a full body yes, like drops in yes, it's a yes. Now, over time, for me personally, I have a tendency to say a yes. Like, I just get excited. I feel like a lot of excitement, and I will say yes. And I have over time, I have taken a pause. Like, you know what? That sounds good, but I'm going to think about it. And every now and then something happens. Like, for example, when I was on this training and this invisible offer came, she didn't even have to finish her sentence. I already could feel it, literally feel it in my body. I was like, oh yeah, yep. I could feel it. And like I said, I have been in other trainings in previous years where it was like, definitely not. And I could feel that in my body also. Now, what happens because of trauma, because of betrayals, and because of becoming disconnected and not having heart and mind coherence, or mind and heart, or mind and body coherence, we don't even feel that hit. There's no connection. And so part of why it's so important to work on, I want to think of it as 3 B's: the beliefs, the brain or the mindset, and the body. Because we have to get beneath, right? We have to go, what is the belief? And then what is in the brain or the mindset? And then how does it feel in the body? It's like these 3 points, these 3 access points. And if you think of it in your mind, if just as I'm speaking, if you can visualize 2 points in your brain or in your head, one is higher than the other. So I think of a belief as the highest point. And then the mind is below that, and the beliefs are informing the mind. And then below that, if we go down into sort of like the heart center, and then we have how it all feels. And oftentimes we get really stuck in the mind and in the thinking, and we have all this knowledge, and we're thinking and more thinking and more thinking. And so when we're in the world and things happen or come up, and there's a decision to be made, or you're considering things, and this idea of like I have no confidence, or I'm not clear, or I have a lot of confusion. Clarity and confidence and competence oftentimes are a result of having a disconnection between the brain and the body. And so when we start to get the brain and the body online and working together, that intuition comes back online too. And so when you're in the world, and when you're listening to things, and when you're hearing things, and when you're considering things, and I'm not talking about offers, I'm talking about life, I'm talking about decisions, I'm talking about making moves in your life, or choosing X over Y, or whatever the decision is. Something comes up about going on a vacation or not going on a vacation, or doing something with your partner or not doing something with your partner, or forgiveness or not forgiveness, or anything that you can start to feel it in your body, as you're processing things, and you can start to discern between a logical yes, like, oh yeah, we don't have plans that day and that would work out, and yes, all of those logistical things all work. Yes, 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 that all works, versus it doesn't feel good. Like, I ran it through the filter. Oh, even though all of the logistics work, it doesn't intuitively, when I run it through that other filter, just within a nanosecond, I could feel it in my body. It's a no. It's like, no. And here's the incredible thing about an intuitive yes or an intuitive no. There's nothing to argue about. There's nothing to defend. It's just a no. It's a feeling, and we don't have to defend our feelings. And so when we don't have a big story about, well, and I was thinking, and this whole thing, it's like, yeah, no, I'm not feeling it. What aren't you feeling? It. Where do you go from there? There's nothing else to discuss. Yeah, I'm not feeling it. That's it. Yeah, just sat with it, and yeah, I'm just not feeling it. It's like, that's the end of that. Now, the beautiful thing about it is that you could feel it next week, or in 3 weeks, or in a month, or in 2 years, or 5 years. You could feel it at another time. You could feel it when you're in a different place. You could feel it when you're more available, etc., etc., etc. So it doesn't mean no, never. It means no, not now. And that's the really incredible thing. And it's so much easier energetically to take things on board and feel it in your body. And I'm not suggesting that you don't make logical decisions. I mean, certainly there's many, 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 many decisions that we make logically. But there's also decisions that we make intuitively. And we just feel it and we know. Whether it's an intuitive yes or an intuitive no. And I want you to just play with this. That's all. I'm just putting it out there to think about what it feels like when you know. And I want to just suggest that when we know something, and we know it, and there's no denying it, we'll circle the drain, so to speak, and seek out people that will either defend like take the position that you are the opposite position, so that it will help you to stay in your stuckness. We will dance with fear, because that's really what keeps us stuck. So so let me give you an example. You have something that you're really wrestling with, and you already know the answer. You don't need to consult with anybody. You don't need the committee. You don't even need to think about it. You already know the answer. But what the answer is telling you is leading you to the next step, and you don't like that next step. That next step just feels too daunting, too big, too something. And actually, the next step, you're not thinking about the next step. You're thinking about the next 25 steps after that. If you were just thinking about the one next step, you could manage that. But your brain doesn't go there. Your brain goes to the next 25 steps, and you get overwhelmed. So while you're sitting with the next 25 steps, you become overwhelmed, and you can't handle that. It's too much. So what ends up happening is that you start romancing the fear, and that ends up putting you in a state of paralysis and analysis paralysis and thinking about it and thinking about it and thinking about it and thinking about it. If that is relatable and you're hearing this part of the riff and you're going, that's what I do, then what I want you to be thinking about is, what if I didn't go out 25 steps and all I said was, I know the answer. I don't need any counsel. I know intuitively. I know already. So what would be the next little micro step that I would take based on that I already know the answer? I don't have to take 25 steps, and I don't even have to take a big giant step. But what do I suppose a next micro step would be? Knowing what I know. What would that be? And then just start there. Because we don't have to flip a table. And we don't have to upset everything. You can if you want, but you don't have to. You could take micro step after micro step after micro step after micro step. Regulate, let your nervous system adapt. Take another step, regulate, and then assess. Because sometimes when we start to make these small adjustments, everything around you adjusts. And then you can say, I just made this adjustment and all these things around me adjusted, and now there's a different feeling of harmony. I'm not so sure that I want to take another step. Like, now this feels different, if you get my drift, right? And so it's, I think you get where I'm going there, right? So I'm going to actually spell it out, because I don't want to be vague here. This is too important. If you're wobbly or contemplating leaving your relationship, but you're straddling the line and you're not sure, and what the fear of that, and there's a part of you that you already know. You have that intuitive hit. You already know. You're like, I know, or I already know. But you go to 25 steps out and you get so freaked out about all of it, and it's so overwhelming and it's so much and you just can't go there and it's just too big. Don't do that to yourself. Ask yourself, what would be one small micro step that I would take if that was the truth? And that was what I was going to do. What would be that one micro step, or what would be one step? And then take that one step, just that one step, and then stop, and then let it settle in your body and in your ecosystem. See what happens. Sometimes when we start to move, everything around us changes. You might make a few adjustments in your life moving towards your next phase, and it may adjust other things that may end up changing the whole scope, and you may not be leaving the relationship. But what happens often, and I have seen this, by you staying stuck, you become an energetic match for a stuck relationship. So I want you to think about that. By you staying stuck, by you standing in place, sort of, if you just imagine like sort of standing imaginary, right? Like, just like, I can't move forward and I can't move back and I'm too scared and I'm kind of paralyzed. You now are a match for a stuck relationship. And so if you moved, it doesn't mean that you're running out the door, but you are building momentum, and you don't know what that momentum, what that effect would have, cause and effect. You're going to cause an effect. Now, what effect will you cause? I don't know. You could have a positive effect. We don't have to assume that it's going to be a negative effect. It could actually be a positive effect, but you actually have to move to find that out. Okay. Okay, so going back to what this riff was about, it was about trusting that hit. And if you know something, act on that. But it doesn't have to be massive. It could be micro. And then just adjust, regulate, harmonize, and then make another small move. Okay. I'll see you soon.